Hi, good afternoon. This is Meredith Lego, and I'm doing some videos on Ascension science and different mechanics of Ascension. And this particular video, I'm going to be sharing a little bit more content on Ascension through gates. It kind of touches upon that topic, if you will, but it also has to do with the DNA and the sound of your own frequency. It's actually a very short channeling, paragraph, if you will, but it was very interesting in terms of the content. So again, at this time, I think this is when I was connecting with the general collective consciousness, and I didn't necessarily have a question, although the group was able to tap into just general, curiosities that I had going on at that time in my life, maybe when I was taking a shower or something like that. The paragraph started with the 12D strands, or the 12-dimensional strands, and I'm assuming that they meant here the DNA strands, is the Ascension time, space, coordinate, vibrational sound. The mysteries of the vibrational sound lies within code of the DNA and etheric blueprint, or the energetic body. Gates, as in stargates, are passed using the energy and consciousness, like keys opening a locked door. When you match the vibrational frequency, the gate opens for the initiate. Sound is the answer. So, as I mentioned, it was a relatively short session that I had in which information was coming in, but it was pretty interesting because if you've kind of followed the video, the last video that I did, it was on stargates, and I had done others in the past, which I'll try and include in the description section if you're interested in seeing those and you are new to this channel. And in this particular session, or the last one, I should say, they talked about the fact that when you're ascending, you're going through the gates, but you're essentially entering those gates, or the most optimal way, at least, is sort of to enter into gates or portals within your own 0 point energetic field. So again, you've got a sort of a multi-dimensional field of energy that's going around you. You've got different polarities between positive and negative polarities, and that has to do with sort of the proton and the electron, and in terms of how they spin and the rotational rates at which they spin. And essentially, eventually over time, you start to achieve more neutrality. So, you're not necessarily super charged in terms of like emotional reactions to things that are going on in this world, but even within your energy body, you achieve more of a neutral point. And at that point, you start to achieve more of a 0 point within your own frequency or your own energetic body. And by doing that, you're essentially creating almost a tri-wave, or a portal within through which consciousness and energy can start to maneuver. And that's essentially a gate, if you will. It's a stargate. And so, what they said is that the 12D, or the 12-dimensional strands, or the DNA strands, essentially is an ascension, or an expansion of consciousness, time, space, coordinate, vibrational sound. So that's very key. It's a frequency sound. So essentially, our DNA, depending upon, I guess, how it's constructed and coded over time, generates a certain frequency sound, just as much as we do, let's say, when we have emotional discharges or something like that, or mental discharges. And essentially, they go on to say that the gates, the 0 point gates within, I don't know in this particular case actually if they're referencing a physical gate, but they said the gates, or the stargates, are passed using energy and consciousness. So I get the energy part, and consciousness, essentially you can sort of intend or direct your consciousness through into the 0 point, into neutrality. So it's with that that when you have this right sort of frequency going on, you're essentially able to quote unquote open or unlock the door of your gate in order to sort of ascend consciousness, and then I'm sure shift to the proper timelines that you is going to really be the best and highest good for you going forward. And by doing that, I have to imagine that you're in such a high frequency resonance, which means you know, it's really neutrality. You're going to get a lot of clarity sort of kind of mirrored back to you. Not necessarily good or bad, but maybe hopefully more good. But it was interesting, the last sentence in which they say sound is the answer. So again, you know, obviously sound can create light. Light is highly correlated with sound. So those two things go heavily together as we go through this journey. That's me saying that. That's not something that came from any group that I heard this from, basically. So that basically covers that particular session, which was short. Now, I also had another channeling. It was the next day, and I just did not get a lot, so I'm just going to go ahead and say it here. It was kind of odd, but the message was the timeline was changed in the Stone Ages. The meridian lines, so the meridian lines would of Earth, essentially, and as you can imagine, we have different meridian or energy lines that kind of run through the human body, and that's basically what a lot of acupuncturists are tapping into in order to sort of release energy from the body. So they're saying that the meridian lines of Earth were bolstered with higher frequencies, and I'm assuming with that statement that by doing that, the timeline was changed during the Stone Ages. Now, I found that particular sentence odd, you know, when I was coming back and rereading it, because I don't think of the Stone Ages as being particularly high frequency, looking back on history. But, you know, perhaps what they're saying is it could have been even worse. And even with some of the stuff that was done, you know, started to shift maybe the frequencies, you know, just a little bit higher for humans to start to come out of, I don't know, maybe to evolve consciousness at that particular time. So just wanted to share that particular sentence. And with that, I hope that you have a really good rest of your afternoon. And I will see you in future videos in which I share more. Thanks very much. Bye.